Hello, it's David Perlman for Conversations at thewholenote.com with our first conversation of 2012. Happy New Year to you all. My guests are Stephen Ralls, hello. Stephen, and Bruce Ubukata. And Stephen and Bruce are the co-founders of the Aldborough Connection. And Lord knows why it's taken us this long to have a conversation, but I'm really glad we are. This is a particularly interesting and auspicious time because 1 month from now, February 19th at Kerner Hall, you're having a gala concert, 30th anniversary celebration.
Absolutely,
of
yes.
the Aldborough Connection. We'll come back to talking about that, but for readers, listeners who were as ignorant as I was when I first arrived, the Aldborough Connection, let's talk a bit about what the Aldborough Connection itself was or is.
Well, I think I'll begin with that, David. Stephen and I met in 1976 in the English seaside village of Aldborough, which for any musical person has a particular resonance because it was the place where Benjamin Britten lived and worked, and it had a marvelous focus and presence in that town. And the Aldborough Festival had been going from the late 40s, but at that stage of the game, they were beginning to have master classes that were taught by the circle of people that had known and worked with Britain. And I was one of the first Canadians to go over in 1976.
In 76.
As it turned out, it was really just the
1977, I'm sorry to correct you.
Had you been going there prior to that, Steve?
Yes, I first went there in 1972.
Okay.
Yes, and those years I was just very fortunate to be there those few years because, as Bruce was about to say, I think it was the very end of Britain's life. He sadly died in the autumn of 76. That's why I was so sure about it, because I know that Bruce was in Aldborough the summer after that.
Afterwards. So I didn't meet him.
You missed him, but you met Peter
Absolutely,
Pearce.
Peter Pearce and a number of other people that were very close to Britain. And the classes were focused on song repertoire, and I loved that, and was thrilled, of course, to meet a wonderful accompanist, Stephen, who had already been playing for a few seasons for those classes. And really, one thing led to another, and certainly by then a number of our Canadian singers were beginning to go to Aldborough each summer. And when we got back here, we all loved the sort of experiences that we'd had, the kind of repertoire we'd focused on, and the seriousness with which it was treated, I suppose also the fun that it gave us all to perform it. And so Stephen and I thought that maybe we could bring something to Toronto's musical scene and in a way try to recreate some of the spirit of those experiences that we'd had. So we founded the Aldborough Connection in February of 1982. And as you say, 30 years ago, I was thinking to myself, it's 1 score year and 10, which somehow sounds a little bit less serious than 30.
So the focus at Aldborough was on art song?
Particularly at that period, partly because I guess the school, the master classes there were really started. It was Britain's initiative to a large extent. He knew that his career, if not his life, was drawing to its end, and that Peter Pearce's singing career was almost over, and his idea was create something worthwhile for Peter to do in his remaining years. So song masterclasses were very much the focus then. But quite early on they had string classes, particularly solo string classes and string quartet classes.
And the relationship between operatic repertoire and art song at Aldborough itself, was that a...
Yes, it was always there, and it was quite an easy relationship, I guess. And in the school there would be performances of Britain's chamber operas, particularly Albert Herring, Rape of Lucretia we were involved in. Also they did some larger things. I remember they did a wonderful Eugene Onegin that Rostropovich conducted.
Yes, indeed, because a number of years we were thrilled to have the classes of Galina Wisniewskaja. That was a tremendous experience for us, and in that a certain amount of repertoire came from the great Russian operas. And of course, Britten himself in his time had been a tremendous Mozartian. He had adored Così fan tutte. But in the classes that we were specially involved in, there definitely was a distinct focus on song rather than aria. They felt that there was plenty of material out there, and we might as well get on with it. And I think we were tremendously lucky to have had those experiences.
And in terms of the singers who came there, were these young students, or were these edge of career? Or?
Yes, they were typically ones who were just teetering on the brink of their careers. One of the first people to go there was Catherine Robin, who was just at the beginning of her career.
And who will be emceeing your concert on the 19th.
Yes, dear Catherine. She sang in our very first concert in 1982, so it's wonderful that she can be part of this.
So she was a colleague from Suffolk. Then you had.
I knew her here in Toronto,
yes,
and indeed was the one who suggested that she would love the experience if she applied, and of course they were thrilled to have her as well. And just to link things up, it's interesting that of course she did do classes in German song and English song, but in fact she also appeared as Lucretia in Britten's The Rape of Lucretia in a full operatic performance there. And in fact she was not to be very, very much involved with opera, but that was a wonderful experience for her. So there was quite a synergy of all those different things going on.
And so in terms of just circling around February the 19th, the co-host for that event is Christopher Newton, whose background is obviously theatrical rather than musical. So going back to opera, was that an aspect of the festival there, the kind of the blending of the arts to some extent? Or?
Not so much, really. Although there would sometimes be programs of songs with sort of narrative material or even sort of dramatic material, but it was an unusual kind of thing. It's that the format that we often use, which you imply, which has a number of singers, but also very often either ourselves or an actor reading or delivering spoken text. That was something which Bruce had even been initiating even before he went to Aldeburgh. I think he had done a number of concerts here on various themes. And we decided, or we realized that it was a format that encouraged people who maybe would have been put off by a song recital, they would never dream of going to a song recital, would be drawn in by something which had a framework to it. And some kind of historical,
thematic or unifying aspect.
I must say it's very gracious of Stephen to give me some credit for it. I think
it's perfectly true.
I'm not entirely sure. I think basically I sort of cribbed all the funny bits out of out of things from the written record of the Victorian ballads. That's one program that I did do. But I should say certainly, and I really do mean it, that Stephen has put tremendous effort into crafting the spoken material in all of our productions, so that in fact it never really is a discursive lecture with musical examples. That's something that he was perfectly clear about right from the beginning, and to a large extent, 99% of the time, direct quotation. So we don't have the sort of babying and I think not very successful business when somebody says, and now we're going to have a really gentle and lovely song. Just set it up, write the account of the composer gazing at the face of his new baby, then have the song and let the audience feel that it was gentle and expressive.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Telling people what they're about to feel is not
always tough work, especially with some of the most wonderful music at our disposal. Who needs it?
So the Gala is going to bring together, and we'll attach a link to the video so that people can look at the names of everybody who's coming. But 16 people who you've worked with over the years, and some of whom were established and some of whom would probably credit the two of you for...
Well, I hope so. Well, most of them, I would say, we linked up with quite early in their careers, and there's certainly a number, I'm sure, who we can claim to have given them their first recital exposure in Toronto, if not in Canada.
They're a marvelous bunch, and I must say, purely from that point of view, we've been doing lots of lists. That happens when you're 1 score year and 10.
Sure.
So Stephen dazzled me the other day. I wasn't completely surprised, but we've, in fact, engaged and had 187 singers over the last 30 years, and they're quite a starry roster, I must say. So I feel a degree of pride in that, I can tell you.
So what makes you say, aha? Because it's not technical, is it? Is it musicality? What is it that says to you, this is a singer we'd actually want to give?
Yes. A very important thing is the delivery of text, because that's, I mean, it's such a banal thing to say, but obviously the words in a song have a great deal of importance. And in a way, more importance, I might say, this is a strange thing to say, but more importance perhaps than they have in opera.
In
Because-
art, in
yes,
the art
because
of
in a
song.
song, in a recital, the words are the only thing that can give the audience any idea what's going on. In opera, they have a dramatic framework. These days, alas, they have surtitles, which have diluted the effect of the text from the stage. I mean, they're a wonderful invention. Anyway, I won't get into that discussion.
That's one of
It's an
Stephen's.
interesting one.
Yes, that's a hobby horse that's well written.
But the delivery of text in a song is obviously incredibly important, and that's what makes a recital a living experience. And people actually are currently experimenting with the idea of surtitles or subtitles or whatever, some kind of titles for song recitals. And I don't think it's ever going to work, because a poem is a much more intricate thing than an opera libretto. And you cannot condense a poem like Kent Du das Land. I mean, it is the poem.
It's a cumbersome business, and also people are riveted, peering sort of some feet above the head of the singer.
Indeed, yes,
Who's
yes.
there in the bend of the piano, knocking themselves out to communicate every nuance. to
On
you.
the other hand,
Everyone's looking up there.
in the song recital, they're busy rattling
There is that.
pages.
Well, and sometimes
Yes.
not enough rattling, because I see those lovely programs sitting out there, and quite a lot of people, I think, scarcely stirring them.
I always
Anyway.
try to read it ahead and then
Yes,
close
yes,
my
yes.
eyes.
Well,
and
yes,
listen,
that's
so-
the ideal
Or you
way
can
to
read
do
it when you get home.
Right.
But if the singer has this ability to deliver the text, at the very least, the effect, the expression of the song will come over, and hopefully some of the words, even if they're in a foreign language, one will get some of the words. And so that's an entry into the poetic idea, and it's so important. Another thing, of course, is, in fact, you might say the first thing is the beauty of voice. Well, that's a very easy thing that we look for in the singers that perform for us.
And do you
Musicality.
sometimes hear, I mean, some of these people were really young singers, not fully into a voice. Are there things that tell you what's coming, you know? Or?
Yes, well, both of those aspects that I mentioned, although they do develop over time, but both of them are probably there at the beginning.
Indeed, talent will out, and it outs pretty soon, I think.
In a singer that wants to deliver text, that wants to be understood, will have that aim right at the beginning. It can be developed, it can be encouraged, but they have it or they don't have it. And with ones that don't have it, you can work for a long, long time, and you somehow don't make inroads. With the beauty of voice, of course. A voice will develop, especially from the early 20s onwards, but as anybody who auditions a lot will tell you, you can hear that beauty,
Pretty
that
early
distinctiveness, that expressiveness right from the start.
And we'll hear 16 of them on the 19th
Yes,
of
indeed,
February
yes.
in a hall that is a first for you.
Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Is it the largest hall that you will have put a concert on in Toronto? For all
Certainly
correct.
in Toronto, yes. Yes.
Because usually you've used the Glen Gould, Walter Hall.
Walter Hall
those
is
two
our
places.
regular series, and Walter Hall seats about 500.
Yeah, and the Gould is even more.
Actually,
intimate.
smaller.
Smaller,
yes,
300,
more, of course, as
300
you
and
well know.
something, yes.
In the whole note connection with Albra connection goes back to 1995, and 1996 would have been the first full season of yours that we would have covered. And interestingly, it was You did 8 concerts in that year. You had 4 that you called your Sunday series and 4 that you called the recital.
Yes, indeed.
Series.
So those would have been in the Glenwood studio.
And that was the 200th anniversary of Schubert's birth. So was it your first Schubertiad, or had you been?
Yes, that would have been in our second season. So that
1997.
Would have been January
1997.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
That was a tremendous celebratory time, and I think marvelous that we were able to celebrate the day and have the cake and the whole darn thing. It was a wonderful experience for us, because we have always focused a little bit on anniversary events, obviously from the point of view of the composers. So we celebrated Poulenc's 100th, and may I be the first to tell you that we might, in fact, be celebrating Benjamin Britten's 100th a year or so from now.
That will be an extraordinary circle, won't it?
So,
yes.
But in this case, it's just a good old 30 for our own organisation. But the Schubert was a high point.
And has remained a motif for you. In fact, I noticed that in your remaining 2 concerts, the February or March, you're doing Schubert and the Esterházy.
That's right, yes.
So what will the spoken component be for that?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of documentary material about Schubert, his own letters, the letters of friends of his, diary entries, their reminiscences, because most of them outlived Schubert by 20 or 30 years. And so as his fame grew, they were writing down their reminiscences. And Schubert went a couple of summers to be really like the music tutor for the Esterházy family in their house to the east of Vienna in what was then Hungary. Now it's, I guess, Slovakia. Anyway, and he wrote various songs for the family there. He wrote piano duets that he would play with the daughters of the house.
Yes, and there is indeed even a fairly lively notion that there was perhaps a little romance going with one of the daughters of the house. So
and piano forehands can be useful for those kinds of things.
Most definitely. I dare say that the odd digit was interlocked at a certain point.
A little bit of crossover of hands.
Oh yes, he was well aware of such lovely things.
But we've always, each year we do a Schubertiad, as you suggested, and it's always called the Greta Kraus Schubertiad, because Greta Kraus, who was the wonderful harpsichordist and pianist here in Toronto, and became particularly revered as a leader coach, I suppose.
Right.
And an accompanist, she played for Lois Marshall and Elizabeth Benson Guy, people like that, in recitals. She was a wonderful help and coach and mentor, both to us and to a lot of the singers that we worked with. And she sadly died just after our Schubertiad in 77, in 97, the 200th Schubertiad. She was not well enough to be there, and then she died only a couple of months after that. So it was really then that we decided we would devote an annual Schubertiad to keep her memory alive.
Lovely. And as a kind of grace note, the other part of your musical collaborative career is now Bayfield, is it? The summer.
That's right. Yes. I'm glad you
he's very well
that.
informed,
yes.
isn't he? Well, yes, we love Bayfield. It's a place that's dear to me because I have a family link that goes back a long time. My grandparents had a summer cottage quite nearby, and Bayfield has just seemed to be the spot for us to have a retreat, and we're very lucky to have a nice house there. And even luckier, I think, to have a gang of people that really are very supportive and interested in the kind of music that we do here. So we put on a great feast at the beginning of June, 2 weeks of concerts, 2 weekends of concerts, and are really particularly glad that we can bring some of our people from Toronto, and everyone seems to have a good time.
And we're lucky to have a really beautiful little hall there. It's the town hall, a late 19th century building. Only seats about 140, 150 people, but it has wonderful acoustics, and we can bring in a good piano, and we really enjoy ourselves.
Yes, because that's one of the things about song recitals, when we get right down to it. Have a good singer we hope somebody who knows what they're doing at the piano, and the piano, and there you go.
Yeah.
So as we are looking for doing more with less, maybe there's going to be a great revival of the song
It
repertoire.
struck me as interesting, as Bayfield struck me as interesting, because in terms of going back to the connection with Aldborough, for the Aldborough connection, that had the virtue of being pastoral.
Yes, indeed.
Well,
there are
excellence.
many similarities.
That's very thoughtful of you and touching.
When we were first spending time in Bayfield, I would often refer to Lake Huron as the sea, quite,
Right.
you know, just by mistake, because to me it was like the sea. You look from the cliffs out there and there's no land on the horizon.
Of course, I would sneer at him and say, well, it's not the sea.
The wavelength
many
is shorter and
similarities.
the breathing is fast.
There still is. There's still a lot of golf and a lot of sailing and
fishing.
people that like to do that and aren't especially interested in the music, but there's also a nice link of
And actually,
people, so.
quite by chance, it is by chance, our festival there takes place at almost exactly the same time as the Aldborough Festival, doesn't it?
Yes, so someday some scholar will have to sort out which started first.
This is lovely. Thank you so much. And looking forward to the 19th and to the rest of the season.
Thank you.
And I hope to a good few more.
Thank you very, very much, David.
Wonderful to be here.
Very kind of you to have us.
Lovely
Thank you.
to see you.
Thank you.
That's it for us at conversations@thewholenote.com. See you again. Bye-bye.